Ladies and gentlemen, there is a new king in New York. All right, everybody, Michael Cohen here with you on a Sports Talk Nation. What was supposed to be initially, because I had no idea when this was going to happen and when the story was going to break. Initially, we were going to do a video post-mortem again on the Jets and, of course, another loss, obviously the Dolphins. I didn't want to discuss that, really. I was probably going to focus on the coaching search that's coming. But you know what? That can wait for another day. You know why? Because the New York Mets have done something very, very big. And they, of course, have signed Juan Soto to a 15-year, $765 million contract. Let that sink in for a second as they outbid the New York Yankees for one of the biggest sluggers out there, maybe the top slugger out there in the free agent market here in 2024. And my goodness, this is one reason why I usually don't jump on the rumor mill and do speculation video here and speculation video there, because there is so much going on with this, especially over the last couple of weeks with regards to where Soto was going to go. There was rumors last week, as we all know, about Boston and the Red Sox being involved, and maybe Soto would go to Boston. Then there was rumors about the Dodgers and rumors about the Blue Jays. And then we heard on Saturday night that it was neck and neck Mets and Yankees. Who is it going to be? Mets offering $735, Yankees at $710. Who is he going to take less to the Yankees to stay with Judge and those guys? And at the end of the day, we get the story, of course, that he's going to go to the Mets on a Sunday night, 10 o'clock in the night. 15 years, $765, which was actually a little bit more than what the Yankees are going to offer, because according to the New York Post, and John Heyman initially broke the story that the Mets were signing Soto. Then Mike Puma added on to it from the New York Post that the Yankees had offered Soto. 16 years at $760, but he decided instead to go to Flushing instead of staying in the Bronx. And I'll be honest, I actually thought Soto was going to stay in the Bronx. I really did. You think about it. A whole year at the Yankees, playing in the Bronx, playing in that friendly confines of that ballpark and hitting home runs left-handed in that ballpark, getting to a World Series, basically carrying that team to the World Series. No knock on Giancarlo Stanton for his postseason, but carrying the Yankees to the postseason with that big home run in Game 5 against the Cleveland Indians. I thought for sure Juan Soto probably going to end up staying with the Yankees, even if the Mets end up offering him just a little bit more money. But no, Steve Cohen comes through. He wanted to get his man. Give a lot of credit to Cohen because he was not going to be denied. He had his sights set on getting Juan Soto from the very beginning, and he was going to make sure it was going to happen. We heard these stories coming out. Cohen, could be offering $800 million. I heard from a coworker could be offering $800 million, which is crazy money. But that's how much Steve Cohen wanted to get this done, and sends a seismic shift. This is like an earthquake banging right through the earth, right through baseball, right through Citi Field, and all the way to the Bronx, that Steve Cohen and the Mets are here to play. They are not going to fool around. Ever since he has been the owner of this franchise, he has found a way to make the Mets relevant again. And such a contrast from where we were years and years ago. We knew the moment he bought this team that something like this could happen. Now, we certainly didn't know it was going to be a Juan Soto, but we've seen it over the years. Francisco Lindor, at the time, trading for and getting a huge deal with him done. He has been a cornerstone player for this franchise, okay? Leader in the clubhouse, as even more so this past year than ever before. And yes, there's been some losses along the way, like Carlos Correa and George Springer, but those, by the wayside. And of course, you all know about even the infamous signings like Verlander and Scherzer that ultimately did not work out. So is there always a reason for gamble? Is there a gamble and risk in making a move like this? Absolutely. Even with a 26-year-old player in Juan Soto, hey, look, 15 years is a long commitment. And again, we're going to learn more about what the contract's going to look like as far as deferrals, as far as opt-outs, if there are any in the contract. But make no mistake, this is an impact player who is going to make the Mets a very attractive destination. If the Mets, after what they went through this past year, with the way they came back and became a playoff contending team, and then a playoff team that went all the way to the NLCS. You hear about all the great things about the clubhouse and all the great things about how ownership supports its players on that franchise. Now you have this with Juan Soto. Other free agents are going to take notice, and they're going to want to come to New York and maybe not necessarily play for the Yankees, but play for the Mets. And that's the seismic shift that we see now in New York. That's the shift that a lot of Met fans have wanted to see for a very long time, because for years it's been a Yankee town. And in some ways it still is a Yankee town. Hey, look, they have more championships. They've had more success. They went to the World Series this year. The Mets were just a little bit short. I understand all of that. It is still a Yankee town. No doubt about it. You take a look at the Legion of Fans as far as who has more fan support, Yankee fans do. But this moment is going to change a lot of things, and it's going to change a lot of minds, especially on players who want to pick a place to go play. And look, Juan Soto, 26 years old. This guy is just entering the prime of his career. Hit 41 home runs last year in the Bronx. This is a player who, when he was, 18, 19 years old, hit 34 home runs for the Nationals and then helped the Nationals win a World Series in 2019. He has been outstanding throughout his career with Washington, with San Diego, with the Yankees, and now he comes to the Mets. And you just kind of felt a couple years ago during the All-Star break when, ironically, we'll get to Pete Alonso in a minute, when Pete Alonso and Juan Soto were on the Fox desk, and they were talking about their pending free agency one day, and Big Papi David Ortiz is fooling around with them and has the money gun and kind of, hitting them both with money, saying, Uncle Steve, pay them the money. Well, here they are, and here we are now, a couple years later, with Juan Soto making the big bucks here with the Mets. So you knew it was coming. You knew this guy was going to want... You knew New York was going to be his destination. It ultimately was with the Yankees. I thought, as I just said, he was going to stay with the Yankees, but no, he chose the Mets at the end of the day. Took a little bit more, even for one less year, a little more from the Mets to get the job done, even though the Yankees had more years in the contract at 16 years. Amazing. Amazing that this happened. So it changes the dynamics of the Mets. It changes the dynamics of baseball. And it certainly changes the dynamics of this rivalry. Hey, look, Mets-Yankees. Remember the last few years we've been saying, what's it going to take to get the Subway Series rolling again? Well, something like this is going to get the Subway Series rolling again. This is going to add to the rivalry and the intensity between these two franchises like we haven't seen since the late 90s, early 2000s, and maybe even goes above and beyond that now. This is going to be amazing to watch when these two teams play each other. They'll see each other 6 times this year, 6 games between the two teams. This is going to be tremendous theater, and the Yankees have an opportunity to do the funniest thing ever. They have an opportunity, because they have a hole in first base right now with Anthony Rizzo now gone, to go out there and sign Pete Alonso to the chagrin of the Mets. That could still happen. Hey, look, Pete Alonso just because Pete Alonso may or may not end up with the Mets doesn't mean he may not end up staying in New York. He could end up going to the Yankees. That's been speculated a lot. And I'll say this about Pete Alonso. If this is indeed the end and the last we see of Pete Alonso in a Met uniform, it's a sad day. It really is. Because he has been a tremendous player for the Mets for so many years. A homegrown Met, a guy who finally got the taste of the postseason this year and grabbed the bull by the horns and ran with it. Had the series-clinching home run against the Milwaukee Brewers in that wild card round. Had a big home run against the Dodgers in Game 5 of the NLCS to force that Game 6. He was tremendous in the clutch when it mattered. We could talk about Alonso's batting average until you're blue in the face with the way things, I understand. Hit only 240 this year. Hit like 220 the year before. And we could talk about the concerns about age, at the age of now, 30, 31, what's he going to be down the road on a long-term contract. I understand all of that. But he was as much a face of this franchise as any player has ever come, whether it be David Wright or Mike Piazza, or you could go back in time, guys like Ed Kranepool and Tom Seaver. Pete Alonso is one of those guys. And I would hate to see, it would be a shame to see him go play elsewhere. It really would be. if you're a Met fan, you almost hope that you have to hope that the Mets can find a way to make it happen and bring him back. Now, is it likely to happen? Not likely. Mets, remember, on the offseason last year, offered Alonso a long-term deal. He reneged on that idea, wanted to wait until his free agent year to see what he could cash in. And I think that offer was like 7 years, $150 million, and he, said no. So obviously he's looking for more than that. I don't know if the Mets, after signing, close to $800 million to Juan Soto, will be able to do this with Pete Alonso. That might be tough. And if he moves on, the Mets are going to obviously move Mark Vientos to first base. Vientos had a tremendous year this year, and it looks like he might be that guy that was ready to move over to first. But if it is the end of Alonso's time, it's sad that it is over, but be thankful for the fact you had this guy here for so many years in a Met uniform. We'll see what happens with him. But again, if you're the Yankees, you could do a really funny thing by signing him to a contract and, kind of sticking it to the Mets just a little bit. Another thing to watch out here for is, as far as player movement, now we're going to start to see more movement happen. We saw a couple of moves here and there. We saw the Mets get Frankie Montas and Clay Holmes away from the Yankees. Risky moves because these are two pitchers who are projects. Holmes being a bullpen guy, perhaps moving to a starter role. I don't know about that. You tell me you're going to pay, and I'm going to use this Soto as an example. You're going to pay Juan Soto, for example, $765 million, $50 million a year. You couldn't have brought back Luis Severino on 3 years, $67 million, instead of giving him, signing a Frankie Montas. So I'm kind of curious to see what the Mets do as far as their rotation is concerned. I think that's the biggest key of all. Sean Manaea is still out there. Do the Mets bring him back? Do the Mets go out there and look at some of these other pitchers like Burns? Is he someone that the Mets consider? Or what are they going to do to bolster this rotation? Because it needs help right now. They really do need a lot. They need starting pitching badly, more than anything else. And what do they do to fill out this roster? I think the thing that concerns me the most with the Mets is you don't want to shake it up so much that you lose all that chemistry you had in the clubhouse. There's guys that are out there that are, fill-in players, guys you can bring on the bench like a Jose Quintana and a Jesse Winker. These are free agents as well. You can bring them back on short-term deals. Why not? You don't want to lose too much of that feel you had in the clubhouse. And, losing Severino, who was the guy who was always walking around the OMG sign, as inconsistent as he was in the rotation, that's from the clubhouse standpoint, that is a loss. So we'll see what the Mets do here. I'm really curious to see what their next move is going to be. You don't want to see them drift too far away from what they were establishing as a culture. That's the thing I want to focus on most of all. You want to keep the culture going, but also adding to that roster and making yourself a championship team. So that's what we have to wait and see what they do. Same thing for the Yankees as well. What's their next good move going to be? I would imagine it's going to be first base. Imagine it's going to be maybe even third. They have to make a move. Willie Adames is now off the board for them as well. He signed with the San Francisco Giants. So how does Brian Cashman get creative on that front as far as getting a bat? The Yankees need another bat now to protect Aaron Judge in that lineup. So the Yankees are going to have to get very creative in how they do things here in the offseason. And the last thing I'll say is this. The expectations now change. And they changed when the Mets got to the NLCS. So the expectation was now, hey, go compete for the division title now. Now with Juan Soto here, the expectation is World Series. World Series. And I usually don't want to sit there and say that. You got to go through the whole season. I understand that. But that's what it is now, guys. That's what it is. The Mets are now expected to be a World Series team. When you get a player the caliber of Juan Soto, who has been a player who has had big postseason success throughout his career, you expect, and you should expect, especially for a team that's willing to pay this kind of money, to compete for a World Series. So, folks, leave your thoughts below. My word, what a night in New York. This is all about Juan Soto. It's a Mets city. It's a Mets town right now in 2024. Like and subscribe. We'll talk to you later.